Let's be honest. I wouldn't want somebody to tell me that. The bags up under my eyes are designer, you guys. I just saw that on somebody's art poster board. Hey, you guys. I just wanted to come through real quick. Okay. Heart to heart message. Not that any other message is not heart to heart, but you get what I'm saying. Since these bags under my eyes want to be the main attraction, the main character, gonna use it as a jump off point of conversation. The bags, did you see under my eyes, you guys? They tell a story, and the story is this. Last night, all these nights, okay? Some nights I sleep better than others. Let's just be honest, okay? Other nights I don't. Last night was one of those nights, I guess, where I didn't sleep that well. A lot going on behind the scenes that I don't share with y'all, but I'm gonna share just a little bit that God allows me, and that is this. I'm a 45-year-old woman, okay, going through perimenopause, which means I've had some really weird symptoms. Is hot flashes, okay? When winter was here, when I was sleeping outdoors in the wintertime, I would have hot flashes. 20-something degrees outside, you guys, I would have hot flashes outdoors trying to sleep. That means I would be extra cold on some nights, and I'm sure I wasn't bundling up too much, but also make sure that I'm also bundling up enough where my body is warm enough to fall asleep and stay asleep, right? Just sleeping outside, period, is not the easiest thing in the world, but it can be done. Now, I'm not going to share with you guys exactly where I sleep because that's none of y'all business. Okay, that's something that I'll say for if God allows me to share that kind of stuff with y'all. There's certain things that I want to share with y'all, but I'm just not sharing it here on YouTube. It ain't about to happen, okay? Hopefully, Lord willing, I'll have a place in the future where there can be a meeting of the minds, where there can be more intimacy, where I can be more hands-on, more one-on-one with you guys about what it's really like being houseless out here as a woman, as a black woman at that. I know that a lot of you guys have questions, but the main reason I want to come on here is that if you're someone that's currently already houseless, newly houseless, number one, or if you're facing a houseless crisis situation where you think you may end up on the street. That was a real thought for me, okay? Back in whatever year that was, 3 years ago, that was a real thought. I was really scared, you guys, but looking back on it, God eased me into it. But the thing I want to let you guys know, I want to put your mind at ease and let you know that it can be done. It will be done if that is God's will for your life. You'll be fine only if you take God with you on a journey like this. You have to. God has to be your compass. God has to be your anchor. You have to cling to Him, because if you don't cling to Him, you're gonna be like some of the people I see out here. They have lost all hope, and I've seen some people out here that's just comfortable. It's like they're comfortable being houseless, but they don't want to be houseless. Deep down inside, they don't want to be houseless. They want a place of their own, but they feel like they can't get a place on their own because they don't see a way out. When I come across people like that, I actually pray to God on their behalf, because I can see that they want a better life. I can see in their eyes that they know that there's a better way, but they don't know how to get there. And so my job is not to try to force them to see how to get there, but my job is to point them in the direction of Jesus Christ, right? I don't have all the answers, but Jesus does. Neither do they, but Jesus does. And so I always make sure I say a prayer over those types of people. And then for the people that just don't see, it's just hard. They won't see. It's like they've gotten so comfortable being out here. They've been out here for years. When I say for years, I'm talking about, y'all. I've met people out here that said they've been out here 5, 7, 10 years. It's crazy. They know their way around the streets of Pensacola like the back of their hand. I'm like, how are you doing this? Why would you want to do this, right? But let me say this. When God allowed me to really start sleeping outside, like literally outside, outdoors, there was a phase, right? There's a phase where shock, you're in shock, right? Once the shock phase wears off, you'll be fine. And I was released outdoors, like for real, for real. I remember that first night I slept at a bus station. I was so scared, you guys. I felt like I was in a movie, right? I felt like I honestly was in a horror movie. I wasn't being chased or anything. I was just really scared, and it was nighttime, you guys. And there I was sleeping at a bus station. And I remember the homeless shelter that put me out, Waterfront. That's where I was, at Waterfront, you guys. Waterfront Mission. Okay, let me tell the truth. I left for reasons I won't get into. Okay. I left outside of the gates. Y'all want to know what it was really like staying at Waterfront Mission? Hit the like button or just let me know in the comment. If you want me to go into my story and what happened at Waterfront Mission here in Pensacola, I'll tell my story, but y'all may not want to hear it, so I'm not going to waste my time for it if y'all don't want to hear it. Anyway, I left out at night. Once I got outdoors, I became scared, okay? I was wandering around. I remember sitting on the back of a U-Haul truck. I was just freaking out, crying out to God. I walked up to the bus station and I slept on one of the benches for like an hour. I woke up. It was, I don't know what time it was. Probably it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I didn't know what to do. I was in shock. And so I walked back to the homeless shelter that I had left, Waterfront. They let me in. They allowed me to sleep there that night. When I got up the next morning, I thought they were going to let me stay. They said, you cannot stay. I said, really? They said, you left out. Our rule is that once you leave, you can't come back. Now, this is a Christian-based homeless shelter, you guys. They were kind of playing around with me, honestly. I think they were getting a kick out of the fact that I was in shock, and that I was scared. I remember the lady looking me dead in the eyes, and she was like, you scared, ain't you? You scared? You were scared, weren't you? I'm not joking. Just like I'm looking at this camera. She looked me dead in the eyes. This is a woman, one of the higher ups over at Waterfront. I forget her name. Looked me dead in the eyes, and she said, you scared, ain't you? I said, yeah. She said, we can't take you back. So I stayed there for the rest of the day, but they said I stayed there for the rest of the day. I remember it started raining about 6 o'clock, which was the time where I had to be released back to the street. They said you can stay long as you have $10. If you got $10, you can pay to stay, but you're no longer in the program, because I was in the program. The program is basically you signing up to be Cinderella, which means you're cleaning their shelter, you're cleaning their toilets, you're washing their dishes, you're sweeping and mopping their floors, you're Windexing their windows, you're doing all these chores and stuff. You're basically their slave, in-house slave. That is the way you pay for your bed at Waterfront. And so it was raining, pouring down raining, but I didn't have no money, you guys, and I was so embarrassed. So I left out. It was raining. I remember walking outside of the doors, and there was this awning. I was standing up under the awning to keep from getting wet. I didn't have an umbrella. All I had was the clothes. in my bag, and I started out, and someone from Waterfront Shelter, this man, his name is Waterfront's website, you'll probably see his name, Kent, something like that. This white man, he stopped me. He was like, I think they knew. They wanted to humiliate me, but he stopped me. He was like, where are you going? I said, I'm leaving. He said, why are you leaving? I explained to him what happened. He said, come on back in. And so I walked back in. The lady that was basically taunting me, she was standing there, and they had some words, and they were like, you can stay here for the night and we'll talk about this in the morning. When they said we'll talk about this in the morning, as in like we're going to bring a resolution to it where you can get back in the program, which I'm actually glad I didn't go back into the program. You guys, looking back, I'm glad that I was actually released to the street, even though it was scary. I got up the next day and they basically played in my face, and they was like, no, we're not taking you back in unless you got $10 to stay for the night. I didn't have $10, so I left. So I've been on the street ever since. And I will say for the very first 30 days, I was very scared. I was in a state of shock, panic. I remember going to this abandoned Rally's, and you know the tables, outdoor seating. I sat down at one of the tables, you guys. I was on my cycle. I went across the street to use the McDonald's bathroom to, clean myself up. I had to come back outside. I charged my phone at McDonald's. I came back across the street and I laid my head on one of the abandoned tables at an abandoned Rally's Checkers restaurant, and I just cried. I didn't have no words. I was just hoping that God would read my tears, my mind. And I didn't have no money. And I remember this car pulling up, and I heard a horn. I lifted up my head from the table because my head was down. I was so embarrassed. And I lifted my head up from the table, and there was this car, and they were holding up. They had two dark tinted windows. I couldn't see who was inside the car. I walked up to the window, and they slid me this money, and I was trying to see inside, and they just said, "You're welcome," and they pulled off. I never saw who it was. I'm not gonna say how much they gave me, but it was grateful. I was so grateful for it. It was exactly what I needed. I used it to get food. And it's crazy. The Seth code that was right across the street, I would go in there. One day I went in there with the money that person gave me to buy a coffee, and I had the coffee in my hand. I was getting ready to pay for it, and the cashier wouldn't take my money. He was like, "Put your money away." And I said, "Thank you." And then there was a guy at the McDonald's right across the street from the abandoned restaurant. I was sleeping, you guys, on the ground. He came up to me when I was in McDonald's, and he was a nice guy, and he was a really handsome guy, and he was just talking to me. He worked at McDonald's, and he started giving me free food from McDonald's, you guys. He would just come out and ask me what I wanted, and there was a group of other girls at another table, and he would give them food, and we were just looking at each other like, and they was like, "We gonna come up here every time you working. When you working, we gonna make sure we come up here." And I would just go in there, and I wouldn't even have to ask him, and he would just give me meals. He would give me food. I forget his name. Keith. He doesn't work in Keith. I forget his name. I feel his name. His name was Keith or something like that. And he doesn't work there anymore. But it was like God positioned him right there when I needed him, right? These people that were helping me out with food. And so one day, God told me to walk towards this place called Washburn. I was so scared. And it was quite a ways. I would say 2 miles. I walked the distance in the hot sun. I got to Washburn. I was very scared. If you've never been to Washburn and it's your first time there, you're going to be very intimidated because you're going to see all these houseless people. Everybody's going to be looking at you. And you're going to feel like people, they may be looking at you because if they haven't seen you there before, they're going to be wondering where you came from. And so I was scared. And it was a long line. And I didn't know whether to stay or leave. Honestly, I wanted to leave, but I was there because God told me to walk there to get food. And so, no, he didn't say walk there to get food. He just said walk there. And so I walked there, but they weren't open yet. And I didn't want to stay because I was scared. And so I started out leaving. Before I started out leaving, there was this young lady sitting on the hood of her car. And she was like, she introduced herself to me. She was like, "Are you from here?" And I was like, "No." Yeah. She was like, I don't know, she asked me where I was headed or something. And I was like, "Oh, honestly, I don't know. I'm not from here." And she was like, "You need a ride? I'll give you a ride to wherever you need to go." And I felt the peace. Like I discerned that it was safe for me to get into her car. It was like the Holy Spirit was telling me it was okay. And so she was like smoking this. And she was like, "Give me a few minutes." She was like, "I'll let you know when I'm ready." She was like really cool or whatever. She was like a tomboy. And so I was like, yeah, because I'm going to get out of here. I was like, "Lord, I'm praying this is you." It was him. I got in her car, you guys. We start driving. She started driving. She's, we talking about Pensacola. And she was asking me how long I had been in Pensacola, where I'm from. And, I'm not telling her everything because you got to be street smart out here, right? And so she stopped to get gas. And she was like, she was houseless too, but she was living out of her car. And she was living with somebody. She was staying with somebody too. She was in between her car and staying with somebody. So she asked me if I was hungry, and I said yes. And she was like, "I got some greens, some sweet potatoes, and some mac and cheese, and some chicken, something that she made last night left over." She was like, "Do you want some?" I said yes. So she was like, "Okay, cool, we gonna make a stop." So we made a stop at the place. She was like, "Sit right here." She was like, "Don't move, I'll be right back." I sit in the car. She goes up, gets the food. She brings it down to me in a Tupperware. She's like, "It's cold." It was cold. I opened it up, y'all. The food was good. And so the food was so good. I was so hungry. I started eating it cold. But she was like, "Girl, I'll take you to a gas station and let you warm it up there." I said, "Cool." So she took me to the gas station. I warmed up the food, got it real hot. And boy, it tasted like Thanksgiving food, you guys. It was the first time I had greens in I don't know how long. And so she was like, "I'm going to take you to this place." She's like, "Where you been staying?" And I told her. She was like, "That's not safe where you been staying." I was starting to see why God had sent her to me. And so she was like, "That's not safe. You've been staying over there?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "I'm going to take you to this specific area. I'm not going to say where it's at." She's like, "You'll be safe here." She's like, "There's all kind of stuff in the area." And she dropped me off at this one place. She gave me the rundown. This young lady, she would come pick me up, and I would ride with her, and we would laugh, and we would talk, and we would hang out. She had a good head on her shoulders. She was working, and she would encourage me, and I would encourage her. She had her shortcomings, and the Holy Spirit basically told me, not to get too close to her. So I said, okay. And so, anyway, I've been in this area ever since. This is the area God told me to stay in until further notice. I said, okay, Lord. And when I tell y'all I have everything in this area, I have everything in this area. I have everything that I possibly could need in this area. And so I see why God has me stationed here. And so I just wanted to come over here and give God, it's good to read word. Sometimes you need to just come on here and tell some of your story to people and just keep it real with people and explain to them how you got to where you're at. And I'm not saying that I'm on top or anything, because like I said, I'm still in the game. I am 45 years old and I feel like my life is just beginning, right? There's been many days where I ask God, like, Lord, why come we couldn't have done this at 23, 25? You know what I'm saying? But it didn't happen then for a lot of reasons, because I wasn't trying to pursue a real relationship with God. I just wanted to do my own thing, but still have God on the side. But anyway, I won't go into that story, but my life is just beginning, right? And so, yeah, I just wanted to come on here and kind of share that story. Your blessings, answers to prayers that you are waiting for God on, could be in places where you least expect it, because it could be like hidden in places where you least expect it. I never expected for that girl to be planted there at Washburn. The place looks dirty, but when I tell you, Washburn and the people in it have been such a blessing to me in so many ways. I have so many stories that I can tell y'all, but I can't tell them all right now. You have to wait until there's an appointed time for everything. And so I just wanted to come over here and tell y'all a little bit about my history and how I got to Pensacola. I didn't really tell y'all how I got to Pensacola. If you want to know about how I made it to Pensacola, because I didn't drive here, and I didn't take no bus here, and I didn't take no Uber here. I literally went from Crestview to Niceville, which is basically near Destin, and I got kicked out of a shelter in Destin, and I made it here. But if y'all want to know more about these stories, make sure y'all like the video or comment below if you want me to go into detail about it. If not, I ain't wasting my time. So anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Remember, begin discovering your purpose in Jesus Christ today, and watch your life flourish in more ways than one. And I'll talk to you later.